So delegates, it is quite an honor for me to introduce a very good friend of CSEA and a good friend of mine as well, as today's keynote speaker for our legislative session. When he last spoke at our conference several years ago, he was the official whose name goes on all the checks that you get from the state. You might remember him more as the man who stood up to legislators when they did not pass the budget on time. He refused to pay legislators until they passed a balanced budget. He reminded them, no budget, no pay. You might also remember him as the man who took on the Terminator and won. He stood up against then Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger when the Terminator tried to cut the pay of state workers to state minimum wage. He's also known as the man who made sure that $3.1 billion in unclaimed funds go back to their rightful taxpayers. Today he is here in a new role. He is now our state treasurer. As the chief banker and chief state investor, he oversees trillions of dollars in transactions every year. His many duties include selling our state bonds, investing our state money, and managing our cash. He still serves with me on the CalPERS board. And we know from experience that he is someone that CSEA can always count on to strengthen public pension plans. As state treasurer, we know that he will continue to stand for labor and for California's working families. His focus has always been to make sure that his work as a treasurer is tied to making sure that Californians have good paying jobs, good schools, and a good quality of life. Brothers and sisters, please join me in giving a great CSEA welcome to our great friend, State Treasurer John Chiang.
Good morning, CSEA. It's so great to be with you. I want to begin by thanking Dave Lowe for the invitation. Dave was in his typical great humoristic fashion, mentioned that you guys needed your Asian share this morning. So I had to correct Dave because some of you know, as I've shared with you, actually when I first spoke to you this gathering like this in Sacramento, I'm from the south side of Chicago, so I'm your south side Irish. I want to thank my dear friend, Michael. So Michael sits to the right of me at the CalPERS full board, the investment committee, board of administration, other critical committees. He is a stellar champion for CSEA. He's a stellar champion for working people in the state of California. Whether it's retirement security, whether it's healthcare security, whether it's volatility of income, the critical issues, Michael is a really, really tenacious and hard worker. He's thorough, and I just want you to know you can be reassured in Michael's leadership for all of us on the CalPERS board. And then I also want to highlight our boss on the CalPERS board in a technical sense, but also really thoughtful, energetic, inclusive leader, Rob Fechner. So Rob, I want to thank you. Is that Colorado there? And then, sorry, Corrado, my glasses, I turned 53 tomorrow, so I need improvement on my eye care, but another former great colleague, another former past president of CSEA, Corrado Shimada. Corrado, thank you for being here. So some of you remember a couple years ago when I came, Dave also partnered me with another Asian, Warren Furatani, so I understand Betty was here yesterday. And I started off my comments talking about your odds at the poker tables, right? So if you have a pocket pair and you're trying to figure out if you can get a set, you have about a little more than 11% chance to hit that. I'm glad that Rob and Michael have improved the practices here, that we're trying to reduce healthcare costs throughout the state of California. We know it's a great concern. We're all getting older. And so I'm glad that you set up, Michael, during your presidency, the CSEA slide this morning. And what a great practice. But let me thank you first and foremost for supporting me for my election for state treasurer. I'm deeply appreciative for your incredible support. And some of Michael's comments, we remember that we were in very, very dark days a few years ago. California in 2009, and you remember this, some of you were mad at me because I held back your refunds for 23 days because the state was short of cash. We had $2.7 billion in the state treasury to pay $10 billion worth of bills. The governor and legislature tried to get it correct, but remember, we had massive deterioration. We had massive deterioration in the revenues coming into the state. We had the real estate crisis, where the average price or the median price in the state of California for a house was close to $600,000, and it dropped by 60% and went down to $259,000. California's unemployment rate at the beginning of the recession was 5.7% and 5.9% for the last 2 months in 2007. And during the winter months of 2010, it went up to 12.5%. So 1.34 million good Californians lost their jobs, and their families' finances were in peril. And we saw what was happening with gas prices spiking, and so the average median family that's making an individual $52,000, multiple family household $59,000 before taxes, was having to pay over $4 a gallon of gas. So people were really, really punished during that time. And at one point, California was over $30 billion in cash deficit. In that summer, I had to issue 450,000 IOUs to the tune of $2.6 billion to keep California afloat. And people wrote you off. They wrote me off. They wrote us off. They wrote California off. They were talking about us compared to Greece, compared to Puerto Rico. But they don't understand us, right? Because there's nothing like the resolve within each and every one of your souls and hearts. We're California. We're CSEA. And we're stronger than anything that people throw at us. We rise to whatever challenge comes to us, and we overcome, and we prevail, and we win. So at the end of the last fiscal year last year, California had eliminated its $30 billion cash deficit. 188 school districts that were in negative or qualified certification dropped to below 40. And that's because we had smart, tough partners and policymakers and leaders helping make that decision. It was Michael and the team, and you have a government relations team, Dave, Jai, Dolores, Steve, that's second to none. They fight in Sacramento courageously on your behalf. And so look at where California is today. We have the most robust economic rebound in the United States of America. We could have been nothing against, right? This isn't a criticism of people, right? But look what's happening to Greece. We were being compared to Greece, right? They were almost taking the markets down, even though it's a very small country economically. Great people, beautiful country. They took an economy down 27% for their GDP. California, yes, slid. We went from the world's 8th largest economy to the world's 12th largest economy. But today, we're the world's 7th largest economy. Before the recession, we were a $2 trillion economy. Today, we're a $2.2 trillion economy. But this is my focus, because when I first spoke to you, I shared with you a little bit of my family's story. It's like your family's story. Everybody hasn't recovered, and somebody has to care about the people who are still fighting and still struggling to make it. We talk about making it in California. We haven't made it until everybody gets the best and world-class opportunities to do whatever they want to do. My dad, as I shared with you, when he came to this country, separately from my mom, but they both came from Taiwan. My dad brought to this country 3 shirts, 2 pairs of pants, less than $100 in his pocket, learned his 5th language, English, to get his PhD. He really struggled. He was a good man, like the men in this room. He worked really hard because later on when he married my great mom and wanted to provide a family, even though he had a PhD, he didn't get paid a lot of money, right? So it was a struggle. And he understood it. He did everything that he was supposed to do. But sometimes fate puts in really high hurdles. So my dad didn't have good health. He had 2 quadruple bypasses. He had multiple cases of stroke, right? And that would impact family finances. And we understand that happens today. That's how Elizabeth Warren, in part, got famous at Harvard, right? Her research on how healthcare creates bankruptcies in families. So I continued. I haven't changed my mission, whether I was first at the Board of Equalization, to the controller, today as the treasurer. I'm working on making sure that the ladder is still available for all Californians, that the rung on the ladders haven't climbed too high so that people can't reach the next rung. So this is what I'm doing. I'm looking at the economy today. We know it's getting harder for people, right? We watch how many millennials still live at home, right? And you saw in yesterday's LA Times, as I've been saying for the last couple of years, and Rob and Michael and others have championed because they understand it. We put too much debt on our young people today, right? In the old days when California was at a very stronger point in time, higher education used to be free. Education used to be more accessible. Today it's harder. It's very, very hard, and I understood it was hard. My parents said, John, we're going to do everything to get you to college, but you're going to have to earn scholarships. And my parents, even though in the 60s and early 70s, my dad was only making $16,000 a year. But what they would do, they would take me and my brother, and then 8 years later we had my sister and little brother, and each week we deposit $1 a week into, for those of you who are my age, you understand those old passbook savings accounts, right? It's $1, and it's like you go, and it's like $2, and next thing, you know, after a long time, you got $80. Well, you know, I'm the rambunctious, rebellious oldest son, right? And I would challenge my parents. It's like, why are we studying 6 hours a night, right? They said, you have to get a good education. You have to learn, right? This is the only way up, right? Because you're not going to be given a silver spoon, right? You're going to have to earn it. You're going to have to work hard. But this country gives you that opportunity, as we need to make sure it does for everybody. Now, when I got to about 7th grade, my mom said, okay, I've had enough of your arguing with me. On Friday nights, you can go play softball. You're not going to go to the bank with us unless you want to. So I didn't. I went to go play softball. Now, my brother continued to go. So a few years later, I noticed my brother had close to $1,000 more than I did. I said, how did he do that? He said, I played softball an hour later than when you started. I kept going to the bank. Right? That's the power of what Rob and Michael and Dave and your government relations team are doing. We want to make sure that you have retirement security. We want to make sure you have access to higher education. We'll always need access to education. This world's changing dramatically. We need to make sure that you have access to savings in the short term so that you can buy a house or pay rent on an apartment or pay utilities. Right? At every point, we have to continue to save because income covers you now. Savings covers you for the short term, intermediate term, or long term. Now, this is the first example that I want you to take. I now run the state scholarship program as your state treasurer. It's the investment program that we encourage all of you to participate if you want to save for a child's future. If instead of my parents giving me $1 back then in Illinois, and they lived in California, and I was born 17 years ago instead of 53 years ago, if they had invested every week $4 a week for 17 years, that would have paid for a community college degree today in the state of California. It only takes one Frappuccino a week and depositing that money to pay for a kid's junior college degree. And when they get there, I know that the CSEA members are going to take care of them to make sure that they get all the way through into the end zone and that they're successful. But I want to make sure that you understand that. So those of you who have kids or grandkids, want to take care of that next generation, your loved ones, your neighbors, your family, friends, contact me. Let's try to get you into those programs to make sure that we can build a better future. In addition, in the Treasurer's office, I'm working in affordable housing. People will talk about Texas coming in, Utah coming in, South Carolina coming in and raiding California's people. And they're saying, oh, the rich people are leaving. Actually, we have more middle class and low income earners leaving California than rich people. Why? They can't afford to live in California. Housing has become really expensive. If you live in Los Angeles, you live in the most expensive city. There's different metrics, median income to median price that you pay monthly for living there. You live in the most expensive city. California has about more than 80% of the most expensive areas to live in the United States of America for metropolitan cities. That's not sustainable. So what I'm doing is I'm taking on and trying to get the developers, the environmentalists, labor, business to come together so that we come and put forward new rules for workforce housing and affordable housing. We need to make sure that people have a sound place, safe to stay. Right? Because if we care about people who are struggling, if they know they have a roof over their head, their mental health issues decline. Just imagine the stress of a mom, a dad, worried about where their kids are going to have a roof over that day, where they're going to get a meal, where they're going to get social services. When I did my inaugural, I said my top priority is to make sure that we get more Californians who don't have to worry about a place to stay, because I chair those authorities. I'm also working on a whole bunch of plans to make sure that we create economic opportunities. Rob and Michael look at ESG factors, and so we're talking to funds that invest. We're also, you might hear otherwise, but we're aggressively going after the big Wall Street folks who charge you too much money. We want to make sure that we drive down those fees, that we get maximum returns so that you're going to have retirement security. But we also want to look for people who are going to invest in you. We want people who are going to invest in California. So we're talking about people who are going to invest in companies in California in middle and low income areas so that we can create jobs in those communities. In addition, I want to make sure that those of us who work really hard have a great fall and winter. So you have champions in making sure that we protect these pension plans. We're going to have a monumental battle, possibly, next year. We're going to have to make sure that we understand this isn't a battle just about you and me. This is a battle about the future of retirement security in the United States of America. You can't go from 140,000 defined benefit plans decades ago in the United States to 30,000 defined benefit plans. That's why we have over 50% of the people in the baby boom generation with insufficient earnings to protect their retirement security. We don't do that in America. And so we're going to have to elevate our voice and make sure that we fight for this. And I think we're already seeing the energy and the passion nationally because people understand that they worked hard all their life and that they need a claim for working together so that we can get America back to a place where we're aspirational instead of where we turn against each other. And so I'm also working on retirement security in a different aspect. I'm working on secure choice. I chair that authority. It's to provide a private sector option so people who work today, there's a lot of working people who don't have access to a retirement plan. Now, what we have to do here, and Michael and Rob and I continue to work on this, I mentioned the private equity fees a bit earlier. we're going to continue with your support pushing the financial services sector to offer options that are good for all Americans. Right? The options you get today are too confusing, they're too expensive, they're too difficult, and that's why, in part, people don't save. There's a reason we fight for you, right? Working class people don't all get the same opportunities that those who have greater wealth do, right? There's why the private equity funds and others who have those relationships make 20, 25, 30, 35%. And the options some other people get are their bank account pays less than 1%, their bonds pay 2 or 3%. As your treasurer, we're going to really push on the financial services industry to reduce their fees, but more importantly, make them create opportunities that more fit you. And then one last point. In regards to today's economic conditions where we have low interest rates, so when California was in deep trouble, it's like all of us, if we're in trouble and you don't pay your bills, you have a terrible credit rating. California had a terrible credit rating a few years ago. So we borrow billions of dollars. Let me make that more correct. We borrow tens of billions of dollars. And so we used to pay during those bad days 1.71% more than others, similarly situated state. And you're thinking, 171 basis points, 1.71%, that's not that much. Well, when you add that all up over the years, that's hundreds of millions of dollars, right? That's hundreds of millions of dollars that you could be negotiating for. So we could have better schools, that we could have better health care, that we could have better infrastructure. So as your treasurer, I've been working hard to negotiate with the ratings agencies. So in the last half a year, and this is all of our work, this isn't my work, I just argued the case for us, we've had 2 ratings upgrades. But more importantly, this. I've been able to get the spread. Imagine you paying a mortgage of 4.71%. I've been able to reduce that spread to 32 basis points. 32 basis points. Now, what does that mean for all of you? So we've renegotiated our debt. In the first 6 months, in renegotiating the debt that we all pay back for our schools, for our roads, for our bridges, for our health facilities, for our water facilities, in renegotiating the debt, I've been able to save us $1.79 billion. I mentioned Puerto Rico earlier, right? Because people are comparing Puerto Rico. So California sold its debt at 3.27%. Puerto Rico, that defaulted on its debt, sold its debt last year at 8.82%. This year, it's about 10.5%. 10.5%. So, in conclusion, you need to thank your government affairs team. You need to thank your leadership. But most importantly, you ought to thank the person sitting next to you as all of you come together and really led the change, a powerful change, in making sure that California is back on the right place. And then I just want to make sure that you understand that you can come to me at any time on these programs, because we're going to fight, and fight to make sure that the dream of every single California is the one that they harbor deep in their heart. Thank you very much, CSEA.
Again, for our state treasurer, John Chiang.
I'm trying to do this. So I saw Jane. Jane was saying I was going to forget her. So Jane's retiring She said she's coming to this convention. She said I wouldn't remember that she was retiring. So I wanted Jane. I remembered. I'm highlighting you. Jane said she would take care of everybody after this and to-go party. So take care of them, Jane.
All right, Jane. Well, we're going to find you out after the session. Thank you, John.